Today, my friends, we are going to talk about God and gambling. Yes, it's a very dangerous topic, but I want to talk about it because this comes off the back of a question someone asked me in my recent Q&A video, or for my recent Q&A video. If you haven't seen that video, it will be the one before this on my channel, so go and give that a look. The reason I made a separate video is because I thought this is one that might go off on a tangent, and I didn't want to put too many minutes on that video as it was already long enough. But one of my great subscribers, and you're all great subscribers, and if you're not a great subscriber at the moment, then please do hit that button, asked me, do you think that bringing back strong Christian values to the UK may help reduce the number of people becoming addicted to gambling? Maybe many people have lost their way and many people do not believe in God or follow Christ, or have some sort of religious guidance, unlike back when our parents were growing up. After all, gambling and drinking are harmful acts and very bad for our mental health. And absolutely right there, gambling and drinking are both, when taken to any particular level, can be very, very harmful to our mental health, and obviously in the case of drinking particularly, very harmful to our physical health. So let's talk about that after I say hope you're keeping safe, hope you're keeping sane. Thank you very much for watching the video and for supporting the channel. If you haven't done already, like I say, if you just hit subscribe, that'd be very, very pleasing to me. I thank you very much in advance. So I don't think I can realistically make this video without making my own sort of religious standpoint clear. I don't think it would put me in the right place to talk about this. I am not religious. And the reason I say I'm not religious rather than I am an atheist, which I guess is what I technically am, is because atheism comes with all sorts of negative connotations, certainly of late. People think that because you're atheist, you look down on religious people, you sneer at religion, or you hate God. No, I mean, I'll take the Ricky Gervais approach to atheism. He said there's been sort of 3,000 gods in living history. If you pick a religion, you don't believe in 2,999 of those gods. The only difference is I don't believe in one more, which I think is a fantastic way of putting it. But no, I'm not. I don't sort of align myself with any particular religion. I do think there must be something bigger than us. I mean, look at the size of our planet. Look at the size of our solar system and all the different solar systems in the known universe. It's not possible for anyone to get their mind around, any human to get their mind around that. So yeah, to sort of denounce the existence of something bigger than ourselves, I think is foolhardy at best. But no, I don't align myself with any particular religion. But I know it brings a lot of pleasure and a lot of comfort to people, so that's brilliant. Whatever religion that happens to be. I was, however, brought up religious, so I was taught Christianity. I was taught the meaning behind Easter and Christmas and all that sort of good stuff. I was taught that the world was created in 6 metaphorical days, and then on the 7th day, God did something else. Maybe he went to watch City Liverpool down the local pub or whatever. I don't know what he did. So I was brought up with Christian values, which means puts me in a reasonable spot to talk about this. Obviously, I was brought up with Christian values and ended up a gambling addict. So it's I guess the first thing we can say that you can be brought up with all the best values in the world, and my parents are were and thankfully still are amazing. But yeah, it doesn't stop us from going astray, does it? So let's talk about Christian values. So if we look at the real basics, the 10 Commandments, that sort of thing, I think the underpinnings of those sorts of teachings are solid. But I don't think they have to necessarily be aligned with religion. I think you could boil the 10 Commandments down to be a decent human being. But I do think they make a good framework for what a decent human being might look like. But I do think that obviously there is a massive decline in religious belief. Certainly a bigger decline here in the UK in Christian belief, which is the result of an ever-changing demographic here in this country, which I'm going to sort of tread with caution as to not sort of align myself with any particular opinion on that particular issue. But there has been a decline in Christian belief and in religious beliefs overall. But I do think that instead of being the cause of an increase, and there has been a massive increase in gambling addiction, I think it's probably very much a symptom of the same shift in society, societal interests, culture, etc. I think the two are aligned, but I think if we look at was it Proctor Hock, the philosophy that says of cause and correlation, correlation and causation even, and I think they are both the results of something bigger than themselves. And what do I mean by this? Now, it's very easy and it's very lazy to sort of blame a massive change in culture and an increase in certain addictions and certain problems on technology, on social media, and all those sorts of things. Again, it's very hard to determine whether or not they themselves are symptoms or causes, but there can be no doubt that things like social media and the way we consume entertainment and consume media, and the shifting in that pattern is definitely a very big indicator as to a problem. You know, we live in a society now where things are expected instantly. You know, as an aside, you know, when I was growing up, I think the first home computer I had was a ZX Spectrum, and a game could take 20 minutes to load or take 20 minutes to crash in many instances. Now people get frustrated and infuriated with their phones if their chosen app isn't open within 2 or 3 seconds. This isn't to say that modern people are, you know, whimsical and impatient. It's just an expectation that we have. It's reflected very much in the way that we consume media. We consume, well, from consuming sort of lengthy documentary style things that were put on our TVs, to shorter format YouTube videos, and now to sort of instantly gratifying things such as TikTok or YouTube Shorts. So we are speeding up the way in which you know, we feed our brains with information, and feed our brains in many instances with chemicals such as dopamine. And again, this isn't necessarily to blame the consumers. This is something that has just come about through technology, and shift. But this has led to a point now where we become very, very hungry for instant gratification. And it's probably why we've seen a shift from young people consuming alcohol as a means by which to raise endorphins, etc., to getting that either through sort of technological sources, or in some instances, I know for a fact there's been a significant increase in the consumption of certain recreational drugs. But I don't think anything shows this shift more than the increase in gambling addiction amongst young people. There has certainly become more prolific availability of it. Every TV advert, or it seems, is for a new gambling site or a new gambling app. You know, it's available 24/7. It's available at our fingertips. You don't need to go to bookies. You don't need to go to a casino. It is there. Okay, but is that the reason, or is that simply feeding the beast that we have created? So, like I say, I think that Christian values and religious values from, you know, any decent religion still should hold true. And I do think that actually having those in our lives can help prevent urges. You know, certainly in the short term, maybe it would prevent people from seeking gratification in ways that are less healthy. Whether that's done through fear, though, is a theological debate for another day. But I do think it's all very much symptomatic of a change in society. And I think it's also become a change in the expectations of people in society. And I think this is probably where the religious element feeds in really well. When I was growing up, and more so when my parents were growing up, and I'm pretty sure more so when their parents were growing up, there was an expectation that you worked in the week, you went to church on a Sunday, you got married, you had children, you both, you know, raised those children, and you bought a house, and you know, you lived a very kind of cut and paste life. But there was expectations, and I think there was, whilst there was pressure on those expectations, speaking to my parents, and even going back to speaking to my grandparents, there was a certain understanding and appreciation of those expectations, because you knew what the path was for you. Now, we live in the 21st century, and I think some things have improved. I think there is, you know, more options, more opportunities for people. You know, I think people are living a much wider, you know, range of lifestyles as they did, and that doesn't sound like a particularly bad thing, and I don't think it is by and large. But the problem is with a lack of expectations, and a religious framework can build these expectations, you know, through, like I say, raising a family, getting married, all of those sorts of expectations and institutions which are underpinned in religion. That can help provide a level of stability and also people's guidance in understanding what is expected of them. I think a lot of young people growing up now, and even people of my generation, are sort of fed the idea that it's you can do whatever you want. And I don't want to go down theological debates on sort of single parenthood or anything like that. Okay, but the fact that things like single parenthood have increased massively over the last 30 and 40 years does show somewhat of a deterioration in the underpinning values of religion. Now, I'm not going to sit here and argue whether that's good or bad. All I'm saying is that is a symptom of the same thing. There's also a definitive lack of expectation when it comes to settling down. People now in their 30s and 40s are living like people in their late teens and 20s. The almost impossibility of buying a property when you're young has maybe led more people to disregard that conventional path of life, which again is underpinned in religious, values and religious expectations, and maybe pursue something different. Be that a single life, be that a life of hedonism, or be that something else completely. I think there are pros and cons, and I certainly think this new modern lifestyle where things sometimes are worse, but generally we have more freedom from the pressures of our parents, more freedom from the expectations of society. There are pros, but one of the cons of that is that people can often become dependent upon and addicted to things which bring them instant gratification. I think expectations are fed through social media. I think expectations are fed through the media. Why haven't I got a Lamborghini yet? Why aren't I dating an Instagram model? Etc. Etc. Which wouldn't have been, even considerations, I guess, back when I was a kid. You might sort of see a Ferrari Testarossa or whatever it was when I was a kid, but the only way you were ever going to achieve that was through hard work and not through getting your kit off on OF. So, I think society in that capacity is a little broken. And I think those are the points at which maybe a strong religious underpinning would help, but also would that then harm people's opportunities and giving people the freedom to live their own lives. And going back to what I was saying, one of the cons is gambling addiction. When there isn't, someone who's Christian or whatever or Catholic might be able to correct me on this, but as far as I'm aware, I know there is in Islam, but as far as I'm aware, there's nothing in Christianity that actually forbids gambling. Is that? I might be wrong. You might be able to correct me on that, but I know in Islam it's forbidden. But as far as I'm in Christianity, gambling itself isn't forbidden. And I'm sure there are lots of things that are forbidden in the Bible that maybe even people who follow the religion don't necessarily adhere to. But that's by the by. But yeah, I think having that religious framework which feeds our expectations as to what's expected of us could well keep us away from a life of instant gratification and that need to stimulate and accept us and deal us acceptance at every turn. Anyway, I'm rambling. I didn't script this video. It started really well and then I sort of maybe went off on a bit of a tangent, but I will very quickly summarise and then let you get on with your lives. Do I think that religion would stop gambling addiction? No. Do I think going back to an older form of society, which was underpinned by, religious values, would reduce the number of people who fall into the trap of gambling through addiction? Absolutely. Totally. But I think it's more that they are both symptoms of a societal shift rather than the lack of religion causing people to go out and get themselves addicted to online slots. That's my opinion. Stay safe, stay sane, everyone. I'll think of a light-hearted topic for the next one, but I can't promise that, I'm afraid. Take care, everyone.